Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. The UIAAA would not be able to broadcast this podcast without the support of our business partners. Thank you to all of the gold and silver business partners of the UIAAA, BSN Sports, and our contact, Jeremy Macy. Final Forms, AMP, with contacts Julie Renner and Clay Burnett. Granite Canyon Wealth and our contact, Megan Palazzo. Jostens and our contact, Molly Shaheen. NCSA, Next College Student Athlete, and our contact, Paul Putnam. VNN Varsity News Network and our contact, Jason Jones. Thanks again to all of the gold and silver UIAAA business partners.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Glad to welcome our guest today, Big Rich Barton, Athletic Director and Vice Principal at Richfield High School. Rich, how are you?
Doing good. Glad to be a part of this new and exciting UIAAA Connection.
Well, we're excited to have you here. Let's just jump right into it. Let our listeners know a little bit about you, where you grew up, your path in athletics that brought you into coaching and then eventually into an athletic director. So have at it, Rich.
Well, my life started out in a really small town of Orderville, Utah, close to the Arizona border.
I know where that is.
But one of our past presidents from way back in the UIAAA, Farrell Heaton, started there a couple years before I moved. I moved when I was 13. My dad passed away when I was young, and my mom remarried years later, and that's when we moved to the metropolis of Cedar City.
So you were a sophomore at Valley High School.
No, my last year there was seventh grade. But
okay, so the burning question is...
Seventh grade was in the high school. That's how small a high school it was.
Right, but the burning question is, when you were a Valley Buffalo, was Farrell there?
Yeah, Farrell was, that was his second year, was my last year there.
All right, that's awesome. Sorry to interrupt. So now you've moved to Cedar, so you went up Highway 89 and down the Long Valley Junction to Cedar City.
And Cedar City was a good experience at Cedar High School. You know, my father figure was my basketball coach, Steve Hodson, who was also a longtime athletic director, and you know, he was one who I wanted to emulate. You know, and he greatly influenced my career path and also my path to collegiate athletics. I lived right next to the Southern Utah campus. So I snuck in the gym year round. And from the time I was a freshman in high school, I spent my spring, summers, and falls not only playing pickup ball with the college players, but also in the weight room, and felt like I was part of them, and to a point where I never really desired to go anywhere else to school. And when I was about a junior in high school, that's when they announced their move to Division I, and so that kind of cemented my decision to stay home to school. Played my freshman year, then went on a 2-year mission to the Kansas City, Missouri area. I served about a year of my mission around Kansas City, and then the other year was around the state of Kansas, which it was an exciting time there. Also basketball wise, because that's when Danny Manning led the Jayhawks to the national
championship in '88. Okay, I'm with you.
I got moved out of Kansas City about a month before the Final Four. They moved me clear to Wichita. That was probably an inspired decision, keep me away from the basketball hoopla and keep me centered on the full-time service. But I came home, played my sophomore year. After actually going, I went 18 months without ever touching a basketball, and worked hard to get back in shape. I was fortunate my sophomore year to be our team MVP. We We beat Xavier that had a front line of future NBA starters. It was a top 10 team. We beat some other good teams. Then that summer we went on a European tour and played about 12 games. And on that tour, I was able to play against guys I'd seen in the NBA and things, and my confidence level was pretty high. And then had my junior year start, and started in the best way for me and my team. And then a sixth game, I blew my knee out, blew my ACL. I tell people that game was the best game of my life, the worst game of my life, all in one. Is I had a chance for the school scoring record that still stands to this day, 51 points. I think it was set in the early 70s. And I had 27 at halftime. I had 42 with just under 7 minutes to play. So I was on pace to get it in a game that was a close game. But I blew my ACL. And at that time, we were kind of guinea pigs with the surgery. And, and then I tore it again 6 months after surgery. Was basically out a year and a half. I did play my senior year on one good leg, and then I fractured the wrist on my shooting hand midway through the season, and was fortunate to get 20 a game, be in the top 20 scorers, but a lot of the fun was taken out of it with how much time was spent in the training room before practice, after practice. But had some opportunities to play overseas, some lucrative opportunities, also to play in the CBA, which is the G League now. And some people thought I was a little bit foolish, but I had gotten talked into coming to my wife's hometown. The coach here at that time had asked me to come and transition into the head basketball job. And so for less than 10% of what I would have made overseas, I took a first year teaching salary. And to this day, I have no regrets. It was an inspired decision. My wife ended up having a stroke about 4 months into my teaching, where she couldn't walk for 2 months, and we were blessed to live a couple blocks from my in-laws, and that allowed me to go to work. And I 5 years into my education, I took the full-time assistant principal / AD job. I told him I would do that on one condition, that I could still coach. And so I juggled those duties for another 6 years.
Okay, so what year was this that you when you first got into athletic administration? In the 90s sometime, obviously.
This would have been 98.
Okay.
And so, I loved coming to the conference and things, but I still spent my winters coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Then 8 years into my coaching career, I unexpectedly got called to be a bishop in my church. And with the full-time assistant principal, AD, and basketball, something needed to go. And I knew in my heart, time-wise, it needed to be the coaching. And as hard as that was, that was a blessing. I served the next 7 years as a bishop, but during that time period, I was able to get more involved in the UIAAA, as in my words, as more than just a taker. I was a taker of a lot of great things from the UIAAA, but I was able to get on the other side and be one of the many givers, as far as teaching courses and filling leadership positions and committees, and that's been a blessing for me.
So my question to you is, your first UIAAA conference would have been in, let's see, the spring of 98, or would have been in the spring of 99?
I'll get the years a little mixed up, but I think it would have been 98.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did you attend the conference that was up on the boulevard at the Four Seasons that's now a school?
I think I would have been the year after.
And so you were at the conference where we had the dinner out by the swim pool?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, excellent. So that was our first year at the then Holiday Inn, which then became the Red Lion, which is now the Lexington. Long story short. Okay, great. So tell us, Rich, I know that Steve Lunt is on this list, but maybe say a little bit about him and maybe mention maybe one of your other mentors growing up in your coaching role and maybe someone who helped you when you became an AD.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. And losing my dad when I was 9, was blessed to have a lot of father figures, great role models, mentors, examples. Steve Hodson being one of those. He was my coach and my AD. While I was on my mission, he moved over to the college as an assistant. So when I got home from my mission, he was there for a couple of years as my assistant. But he was a mentor. Actually, my assistant principal at my high school, who was also my bishop of my congregation that I attended after my mission, Steve Lang. It's interesting, those two people, I end up doing the same positions they did. Steve went on to be a superintendent. Uh, he also went on to be the state superintendent of schools in Utah, and then later went to Utah State. But
So you're saying we may lose you to a superintendent job here?
no, I filled some of their roles, not all of them. I
Okay.
won't aspire to all of them, but they were great mentors. Steve Lunt at the university, Southern Utah University. He's known for establishing the coaching factory, which in our state, that smaller Division I university is responsible for a third of the high school coaches in Utah during his 30, 40-year run there. And he was one I worked closely with and, mentored a lot as far as preparing for the coaching. And he was also one that, when he published his book, inspired me towards the coaching the coaches course. Got initiated by that thought with his book. I can consider you, a lifetime mentor and somebody that's paved the way for me to be able to serve, where I've been able to serve in the NIAAA. And that's one of the great takeaways for me, with what you've done and others is, we have to reach out to other people, uh, the people we pass the baton on. We have to take time to, show others the way, open the doors for others, and that's what's special about the UIAAA. It's what's special about the NIAAA is people are willing to do that. Where in a lot of other circles in athletics and education, people aren't always taking the time to do that.
And that's a great comment. Thank you for your kind words. I'm not sure what an influence I have, but I wanted to get back to what you said about Steve Lunt and about coaching the coaches, which was my next question. This is a nice segue into it. So talk to our listeners in Utah and across the country where the Coaching the Coaches course at 706, which we're teaching again this year at our conference back to back, and I know it's been taught nationally. So just give us a little background about how that came to be, because I know you were the main creator of that. I know we've lost one of the authors that was in there with you.
Yeah, it's, I've been fortunate to be a state coordinator for a number of years, and from the first meeting I went to in Indianapolis as a state coordinator, I guess it's getting close to 10 years ago. It's always, intrigued me, how our courses have been developed. Now we're up to what, 51, 52
Yeah.
leadership training courses. And from the time I started going to those, I'd always kind of throw around in my mind, what don't we have that maybe we need as far as a course. And when I read Dr. Lunt's book, and he was pushed and persuaded to publish his book of all the teachings he did preparing coaches, and it's a quick read on Amazon titled "So You Want to Be a Coach." It's probably about $7 on Amazon, but it has a lot of good things in it for anybody. I ordered a set for every one of my coaches and a whole bunch of extras. Every time I have a new coach, I give it to them, but it's one of those things that sets a stage. And as I read through it, I said, we need to have a course coaching the coaches. There's some elements in here we can incorporate. And so I started, researching, gathering as much information as I could. Don Bell's mentioned to me Mike Garvey from Michigan had brought up to him a few years earlier about maybe a coaching the coaches course. Got with Mike. Mike and I spent about 9 months working on things, collaborating. When we shared with the board what we were doing with the course, Bruce Brown from Ohio was a board member that I was serving with, and a friend, and he said, I really like to jump in this with you. And Bruce had a lot of experience, a wealth of it. And so the three of us together ran with it from there. And there's a lot into development of a course. It's a 2-year process, and I probably was way too heavy in how much I had accumulated.
Mm-hmm.
The course is packed, as you know, as you've taught it with myself and Jamie Sheets. There's a lot. In fact, we left a lot of great things out of it just to fit it into 4 hours. But I think it's a course that has as much relevance. Of course, I'm biased, but I think it has as much relevance as any course we teach. And we've appreciated some of the positive comments that people around the country. The first time we were able to teach it officially after the 2 pilots, we taught it at the national conference in National Harbor. And normally, as you know, you teach a course to 30 people, usually max.
Yeah.
We taught it to 95. And that room, I think we had people on the floor.
That's a big crowd.
Taking that course, which makes it a little unique in the delivery to that many people. But it's one of the funnest courses to teach, and I also think it's one that people can do a lot as far as takeaways. It is one that once I'm done with the partnering with parents course that's going to be taught for the first time in Denver next December, is when I've got to work through the split of that course, whether it's a 706A and a 706B. But I guess that's the next thing on the agenda with my leadership training course development. But I guess I've gotten that bug. My wife thinks I'm a little nutty when I initiated the partnering with parents after we concluded the coaching the coaches course.
Well, that's an incredible story, and thank you for sharing that. And I know you're working with KP and some others on that parenting course, so that's going to be a great one. Can't wait to take that. Allow me, if you will, to keep along the same vein and speak to our listeners about your journey with the UIAAA and the NIAAA. And I asked this specifically because, well, you're the only one in Utah that has been the president of both organizations. And so speak to that, speak to the journey with that, and how that's affected you and how you've been able to share with others through the United States.
Well, and I don't know as I'm ever anybody who's sought leadership positions. One thing that was good for me when I was out 1.5 years with my ACL surgeries in college is I had some close friends who talked me into running for the student senate at Southern Utah University. So I served 1 year while I was doing a lot of rehab as a senate member, and that gave me some good out of the comfort zone level leadership service experience. But with the UIAAA, once I'd gotten out of the coaching, I fortunate to serve on the ADEC council, and went to my first national conference in Anaheim. And I think it was about a month or two after that conference. And I don't I don't keep late hours if I don't have to. I get up at 4 in the morning and exercise before going to work earlier than everybody else. But it was like 10:30 and the phone rang, and I answer it, not even half awake. And the UIAAA president-elect Bud Campbell, who's along with yourself, one of the only members of the NIAAA Hall of Fame, he tells me, hey, something to the effect, you're running for president at our state conference. And I didn't hardly remember the conversation, other than I told Sheila the next morning. I said, I think I might have agreed to run for the UIAAA president. I don't know.
That sounds just like Bud.
But he didn't ask me. He told me, and he caught me at a weak time, half awake, and so I ran, and I was fortunate to serve. That service, led me to opportunities that you helped pave the way for. I served on the NIAAA Third Strategic Plan. I had that's
Okay, quickly share that story, because
a
I'm
story.
not sure that's kind of NIAAA folklore, but I'm sure some of the younger ADs haven't heard that.
Yeah, we maybe could do a podcast just on that experience alone. But quick version. I went to state tennis at BYU on a Friday. The plan was stay overnight, jump on the plane at like 5 in the morning Saturday morning. And in the latter stage of Friday, I wasn't feeling very good. I didn't know if I had the flu or whatnot. Was sick through the night. And I not one to try to shirk a responsibility or anything, but got on the plane. On the plane, I got, I knew something was wrong with me. They took me to the hotel conference center, and I dropped my stuff off in my room. I went downstairs and I grabbed Bruce Whitehead and Mike Blackburn. I said, hey, I think I need one of you to take me to the hospital. And Mike took me to the hospital, and it was a few hours later in that evening, they took my appendix out. I was supposed to stay in the hospital for not just that night, but for another night. I, at this point, was feeling like maybe I was a burden to the NIAAA. They paid money to get me out there. And so I did get up that first morning, got dressed, and when they came in to check on me, I said, I gotta go to some meetings. And Mike picked me up, and they had a comfortable chair for me to sit in, and I was still able to spend the next couple of days in those meetings, and I hope I was able to lend some things that built some confidence and trust with the rest of them. I won't talk about the flight home, because they had a snowstorm, and instead of getting to Salt Lake at 3 in the afternoon Monday, I got sent to Atlanta, and got sent. I think we were about 3 in the morning when my wife picked me up with her parents, because I wasn't cleared to drive home from Salt Lake. So.
No, so I remember, because I called you the day after you got home, and of course I had no idea any of this had happened. And so I remember hearing this for the first time. So were the meetings up at Keystone by the NIAAA office, or were they at the hotel downtown?
They were at the Sheraton Hotel, is where we had the meetings.
Up at the Keystone by the national office. Okay, well, that's an incredible story. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, so after that, I was able to get on the awards committee. I had an impression to run for the NIAAA board. The first time I did it, when it was Utah's turn, I lost to Tim Graham. That was his second time running, and lost to a worthy candidate. And so I thought maybe my time had passed. And then, interesting enough, 2 years later at section meeting, our section leaders said they voted to change the process of having the states take turns running for the at-large. And they said, and by the way, that the reason we're doing this is because we want you to run again. And as others do, putting yourself out there in that at-large process is hard to do. it's even harder after you've lost at one time. I
Absolutely.
agreed to do it and was very fortunate to win the next time. And getting on the board, your first 2 years you can put in for president. I put in that first year feeling like I owed it to everybody who voted for me, and I was very blessed and fortunate to be elected as president elect, and that was a great opportunity. I'm not naive enough to believe that it happened anything great on my part. I believe people like yourself that have paved the way, people that have supported me, and I was just fortunate to serve in that position. That's made it, so I'm a better person, hopefully a better leader, and a better athletic administrator. Because
Let me ask you this question, because this is kind of a tough question, because I know it deals with disappointment. Because you and I have two things in common. Well, more than two things. We both had our appendix out. Me, not in Indianapolis, and we both lost the at-large election. You were the first Utahn to run for the at-large since I had lost back in '99. And so my question to you is, just because I was heartbroken. In athletic administration, you come from the world of coaching, you just figure you're going to win. And when I didn't win, I couldn't figure it out. Of course, I was very new at the NIAAA, and looking back on it, there's no way I should have won that election against the people I ran against. But you threw your name out there once, and like you spoke just a moment ago, you threw your name out there a second time. And I'm not sure I would have done that. And so just explain that thinking. I just explain a little bit more. I know you mentioned it a moment ago.
Well, and I appreciated, and was very humbled that my section leaders would have the confidence in me to say, "Hey, we're not just going to take the turns. Okay, Utah, you guys ran last for at large 3 years ago. Now it's Arizona's turn or somebody else's." They changed the process to similar to what most all the sections around the country were doing. So that confidence I was humbled by, and as you say, we're competitive people. We come from the athletic
Yes.
arena, and even though I lost to somebody that's great in Tim Graham, it's a punch in the gut, to put yourself out there, and the time and efforts leading up to it, but I tell people to this day, and I've told people that have ran and have lost, I've said, hey, if I had to go through it, run twice and lose twice and get on there a third time, after what I've gained from being on the board, I would have done it another time, knowing what I know now, because what you feel around that table for the 3 years or however long the term is on that board, you can't explain it to people in words.
And that's well said. I can't agree with you more. Having been fortunate enough to have been on the board before you got there, it's something that you have to live, because I had heard people talk about it and about the NIAAA family and the closeness of the board, and it sounded sure, but I just didn't understand it till I got into that boardroom, and I lived that. I remember. So you ran the second time in National Harbor, and that was when when I was finishing up, when I was a chair of the one of the assistant chairs, and then I was also receiving the Kovaleski Award, which you have since won. And I remember the pins with Big Rich on them with the RICH and the integrity and all that. And it just brings a smile to my face thinking back on what great times that was. So thank you for sharing that. Let's get to this part of the interview. You're an UIAAA president. You're an NIAAA president. You're a Frank Kovaleski national winner, which there's not very many of. And let's say you had a new athletic director. I say a new athletic director is somebody between 1 and 4 years, and you want to give them 2 items, 2 things that they absolutely need to do as a beginning an administrator, what would those two things be? I know you've got a bunch, but I'm going to try to get you just with two.
Yeah, hard to limit to two, but the best advice I received from my outgoing AD that I replaced was, he said, get involved in your state association, get involved with the UIAAA. And so, along with that advice, the only thing I would add to get involved with the UIAAA is get involved with the NIAAA as well, because there is no other professional organization associated with education-based athletics or education in general. The accreditation team has made that clear, that we're unique to education, and the professional development gives you the tools you need to be successful in your job. And so along with that is I would tell a new AD to have the ability to listen, have the humility to listen, and I like to say, don't listen to respond, be that to coaches, parents, athletes, but listen to understand, because there's also so much outside of our lens. But I think we all enjoy people who have the talent or develop the talent to be good listeners. And I think in our roles, our supportive roles as athletic administrators, we all need to be really good listeners.
Very good. Two excellent pieces. Thoughts that have been echoed by previous guests on our show. Excuse me. Tell me how your job as athletic administrator today has changed since you first started. So this would have been 20 years ago when you first became an AD.
Well, that's a good question, because part of my motivation with initiating the coaching coaches course was there's elements in a number of courses related to preparing new coaches for their stewardship, but there's not a go-to course. There is now. And when I started as an AD, 23 years ago, 80% of my head coaches were in my building as teachers. Now that's 40%. That's not unique to me and my school, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest change. I know parents and the word investment has changed through the years too. Where that's they look at things a little different, but I think we have to trump the education-based part more and more, because there are threats that exist for the future in athletics related to keeping it education-based. There are people and there are decision makers that don't understand our world. And sometimes it gets scary, as we saw about 5 years ago or so in our state,
Yes.
where a state school board wanted to take over the High School Activities Association, and I think we're gonna fight those battles nationwide, of even people that would like to have the worldwide club model, and we have to promote and emphasize the education-based aspect more and more.
Absolutely. Great answer. Tell me, what's the favorite part of your job?
The favorite part for me, I think, is just being able to be a part and to observe the growth and the progression of athletes, student athletes, and how they grow, and also coaches. I always think back, and we included this in coaching the coaches. John Wooden didn't win a national title in his first 15 years as a head coach, and it kind of gets me a little irritated sometimes when community or people want to get rid of a coach, without giving them a chance. And I even think I had a coach that didn't have a winning season his first 5 years. Every year we had people wanting us to fire him. And years later, he's won three or four state titles. And so I think we have to support those people, because that's part of our, we need to have people's back. And that's been one of the great things for me, is seeing coaches from first year to where they evolved to, in not just the success on the scoreboard, but what they've been able to do in the lives of those student participants with influence and impact. And that's part of our duty, coaching the coaches, that we might not do a lot of the things that are visible on the surface, but the behind the scenes things. And I'm a believer that the ultimate service is not serving people for what they can do for us, but I believe it's the ultimate service is doing things for others that can do nothing for us. And I think that's one of the reasons I love being an athletic administrator, is what we do is underneath the surface and not visible to everybody's lens, but what it is critical service that helps coaches and ultimately benefits students.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I just want to add to your point about interscholastic athletics. And I think the best point I can think of is, recently you look at the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who is no longer the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And it was 3 years ago when he took Philadelphia to their lone Super Bowl win and was loved by everyone. And now he's out of a job. And so I think when you look at interscholastic athletics, I can't thank you enough for that answer, because people need to understand that it is interscholastic athletics and it does make a difference. So thank you for making that point. So let me end with, which has been my signature question now that I'm in this a few episodes, and at least people think that I'm smart and made this up on my own. I didn't. I stole it from Dan, rather, from the big interview. But what question should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I don't know. I think you covered it pretty good. I guess one thing that I've tried to live by, not only in my education career, but be it in my church service and things, and it's just a couple words: lift and assist. And I incorporated it into every president of the NIAAA has a theme, and that was my theme, is lift and assist. And I try to live by that, because not only are we are part of the ultimate lift and assist organization, being the NIAAA, also the UIAAA, but when we lift others, we can't help but lift ourselves in the process. And what better occupation to be in than the ultimate lift and assist occupation that we're in. And to me, it guarantees that we're going to have fulfillment. We're not going to get overly discouraged, even though we deal with a lot of tough things, not only day to day, but year round. But we're lifting and assisting and building up others and the future leaders of tomorrow. And that's one of those things also I would tell a young AD is live by that motto: lift and assist.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Rich. I can't think of a better way to end this interview. Our time is now pretty much up. So thanks again to Big Rich Barton, certified master athletic administrator and athletic director at Richfield High School, the NIAAA liaison, and the certification coordinator for the UIAAA. For our listeners, we hope you turn in again next Friday to hear our next edition. And thanks again, Rich.
Thank you.